Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show, wherever you may be watching or listening. Likely there's your TV Muskoka or MuskokaUnlimited.com. Wherever you are, or one of our channels. I've also changed a little bit, and we're moving towards the chrisoshow.blog or chrisoshow.com. So we're moving that direction. So you might be listening there. Either way, we really appreciate you listening and tuning in or watching on your TV Muskoka. Today I have a really awesome guest, gentleman I've known for quite a while, good friend of mine. Also my editor with Oxide Publishing, but that's not what we're here for. Today, Mr. Andrew Wagner Chazalon is here as the communications chair for Friends of Muskoka Watershed and as a longtime board member and person who really believes in the great environmental science they're doing. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Chris. A real pleasure to be here and happy to chat with you, as always.
As always. This time it's on recording.
Yeah.
So we were chatting offline quite a bit in the last few weeks about some of the great things that are happening in Friends of the Muskoka Watershed. Let's chat about the most recent thing. There was a cruise that also helped people see what's happening under the water, under the surface of the water in our lakes and stuff. So what was that about?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really exciting event. We had two events that we had this summer, and this was the second one. We called it Pier Beneath the Surface because it was on the Peerless cruise ship with Randy Potts as captain. And what we did was it was Norman Yan, who is past chair of the organization, and he's a world-renowned freshwater scientist. That's he's one of these people who doesn't like to brag, but I sort of pull him out every now and then, say, Norman, come on, give me, tell me, how important are you? And he said, on average, a paper that he has authored is quoted somewhere in the world once a day.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and he's been retired for a number of years, but he is not fully retired ever, I don't think. Anyway, so he led and brought a few other scientists on board with him, led a cruise on the Peerless out on Lake Rosso, and it was really about looking into the water and seeing what is living there. Other than fish, we all tend to think of what's living in the water. Well, there's fish and there's
Yeah.
turtles and there's crayfish but Norman's field of study and lifelong passion is the minute, I want to say microscopic, but they're actually a little bit larger than that, creatures that live in the water
Yeah.
and perform this vital role. There's a number of them, but Daphnia are one of them. And I'm going to be referring back to Daphnia a few times because they're very important creatures. So some of them I think are up to about a millimeter in size.
Yeah.
Some are smaller than that. There's 7 or 8 different species. But what they do is they are filter feeders. So they ingest water into their stomach. They eat algae. So they just kind of filter out any algae, expel the water. The entire body of the lakes is filtered through Daphnia stomachs every week or two. So multiple times through the course of the summer. So they're absolutely vital. So they're just constantly, they've been referred to as the lawnmowers of the lakes. These tiny little creatures, they're just constantly grazing on algae. And then they are a vital food source rather to all kinds of other things. Fish eat them, and or smaller things that eat them get eaten by larger fish, and
Yes.
so on and so on. Anyway, so in order to study these, of course, scientists collect them and then view them under the microscope or what have you. Collecting them sounds like it's really, really complicated. It's actually not, from what I understand. Like there are professional nets that are used to strain the water, but Norman actually made a bunch and taught people how to make them using embroidery hoops and a nylon stocking and a rock in the bottom to weigh it. And he just kind of put a string on it or a rope on it, lower it down into the water, and then pull it back up again,
And it's in
and
there.
it's in there. So the goal with this cruise
Yeah.
was to take people out and show them how to do this. And everyone got a magnifying glass and just a little guided view of what they're pulling out of the water. Now, it turns out you can actually see them quite well. Well, you can see them with the naked eye, but if you zoom in with your phone,
Yes.
if you video it and you just zoom in, you've got a fantastic view of these creatures. I was
Wow,
chatting
that's
with somebody who'd
cool.
been on there, and they were showing me a video. They were so excited. They're like, "Look, you can see them swimming around in this little bit of water." Which is
That's awesome.
great. So yeah, so it was designed as a chance to take people out, really kind of open their eyes a little bit
Yeah,
to what's living in the water, and to uh, just get a sense of their of the importance and the complex ecology
yeah.
of what's going on in the water column. Um, One of the things that transpired though was Norman came away very concerned by what they found.
Oh,
Yeah, he said, he would have expected to find lots and lots of Daphnia in this process. In fact, they saw hardly any Daphnia. What they saw was a different species called Holopedium.
okay.
And Holopedium they're a native species. They're normally found in the lakes, but they're normally found in a balance with Daphnia and various other creatures.
Okay.
But Holopedium have like a jelly-like casing on them,
Yeah.
and they Daphnia get eaten by spiny water fleas, which are invasive species, but
Yes.
the spiny water fleas can't eat the Holopedium. The
Oh,
Daphnia get wiped out. The Holopedium don't have their competitor now,
yeah.
so they proliferate. So they're pulling out like actual handfuls of these little jelly balls
Yeah.
that are the Holopedium. And it's a widespread phenomenon. It's not just Lake Rosso. It's not just Muskoka lakes. It's found in lakes. It's being found in lakes everywhere that the spiny water flea are found.
Okay.
And it's being referred to as the jellification of the lakes. Now, if you're not aware of what's living there, you might be like, well, so what? So
Yeah.
this one species I've never heard of isn't there, and this other species I've never heard of is there. What's
Yeah.
the big deal? The challenge is that when you've got masses of Holopedium, because they form these big globules of jelly,
Yeah.
they clog water intakes.
Oh,
So if you're drawing your water from the lake, as we all do ultimately, because even if you're on municipal water, well, not all of us, most of us, if
yeah.
even if you're on municipal water, your water's coming in through the lakes.
Yes.
You're sucking in masses of these
These
Holopedium,
jelly things. Yeah.
these jelly, which clog up the water intakes, and so water plants in other areas have started having to spend millions to find ways of keeping these jellies from clogging the water intakes.
Hmm.
And of course, many people on the lakes draw their water straight out of the lakes.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I'm not sure if people may well have started to see this already. They've seen these kind of globule masses at the end of their water pipes. And there's all kinds of other questions. Are Holopedium as nutritionally rich to fish as Daphne are? There's some thought that they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and are they as effective at filtering out the algae as the Daphnia are?
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
thought they're not. So lots of questions and concerns that came out of this 1 2 hour cruise on Lake Rosso with a bunch of people equipped with embroidery hoops and
Yeah.
nylon stockings, kind of doing some really eye-opening science.
Yeah.
So yeah, so uh, that was a really surprising outcome from this one event.
Yeah, it's
Um,
kind of scary too. I mean, I've had the pleasure of having Dr. Norman Yan on my podcast to talk about Daphnia and their
right.
role in healthy in the healthy environment and the healthy ecosystem, and it goes from the lake all the way up.
Oh, yeah.
That's the effect, right? And how important these tiny creatures are. So anybody, shameless plug, but but it is a really interesting conversation I had with Dr. Norman Yan. If you want to just look it up, just go Norman Yan on my blog, and you can listen to the podcast and listen to all the amazing things that Daphnia do and everything he had to say. But yeah, like that's actually concerning from someone who's learned a lot about the creature, knowing that now their populations are low, and that's something he's always worried about.
Absolutely. And now this was just a sort of a spot sample,
Yeah,
and the nets that they dropped. I wasn't on board the cruise, but because it was sold out, so
which is great.
we were like, "Do I need to be on there? No. Would I like to be on there? Of course. That sounds really cool." But
Yeah.
but yes, it sold out, which is fantastic. We had a waiting list. Um, uh, but they only sent the nets down to 75 feet.
Okay.
So there are some species of Daphnia that go deeper in the water,
Okay.
and they go deeper than, or I believe there's one species that goes deeper than the spiny water flea does. So they
Okay.
might be thriving down there, but we don't know. And is it widespread throughout the lakes? Was it just this area of Lake
Yeah.
Rosso where it's a problem, and Upper Lake Joe is fine?
Yeah.
Or what's Skeleton Lake like? What's 3 Mile? There's so many questions, and so now that we've got some indicators that this is worth
Looking
exploring and
at.
pursuing
Yeah.
further. Then the next step for us as a non-profit organization is to raise some funds to help pay for the research, and to partner with universities
Okay.
to get them doing some more rigorous studies, some more comprehensive studies,
Yes.
in order to really figure out how widespread a problem is this, and ultimately what can be done to resolve it. Because it's not just the spiny water flea, it's also the loss of calcium. And as you know from talking with Dr. Yan, calcium loss is a big problem that has
Yes.
also contributed to the decline of Daphnia because they're very calcium sensitive,
Yes.
and which kind of segues into
Yeah.
our other project. Probably the thing that we at Friends of the Muskoka Watershed are best known for is our the Ash Muskoka work.
Yes.
Which if I can kind of give a thumbnail outline on what that is.
Yeah, let's do it.
All
I mean,
right.
I know all about it, but you can tell everyone who doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll start with calcium loss. And I should say, I'm not a scientist. I just hang out with a lot of scientists on the board. So a lot of this is secondhand. And I'm sure that some scientists would be like, oh, he hasn't got quite right, but I'm pretty close.
Yeah.
Anyway, so acid rain in up until the 80s really was an ongoing problem in this area and throughout much of North America. And even though acid rain was successfully combated, and the rain is much less acidic than it was, what it was doing in areas like this where there's not a lot of limestone, so not a lot of naturally occurring calcium in the soil, the acidity from the rain was dissolving the calcium and washing it out of the soil into the lakes, and then of course the lakes get flushed, so all that calcium has made its way from the soil into the lakes, and then from the lakes downstream and out. The result being that the forests, the soil, the lakes, everything around here, and through much of central Ontario or central Canada, is calcium deficient. And the calcium will naturally replenish itself, but it takes a few centuries.
Yeah.
So what we started doing was saying, well, is there another way? Is there another source of calcium? And yeah, you can put limestone in the soil, but then you're trucking limestone, you're mining limestone. But what we discovered was that the wood ash from wood stoves is very rich in calcium, as well as potassium and phosphorus and magnesium and all these other nutrients. So started saying, huh, is it possible to just take the wood ash and spread it in the forest and add it to the soil, gets into the trees, percolates through the soil, and the spring runoff goes into the lakes and boosts the calcium levels.
Yeah.
So the past I guess 4 years. We've been doing all kinds of studies, working with various universities and researchers from across the country who are also interested in this and have discovered that, yeah, actually, wood ash is a really good source of calcium, and so we've run test plots, and we're upgrading now to doing a test distribution in a whole watershed, like a small
Okay.
one,
Yeah.
so we can measure what the impact is on the lake. But there's been some tremendous results that came out of that. Even just a single application of calcium brings measurable results in tree growth in just 1 year.
Yes.
It's absolutely incredible
It's
what it
true.
does. Yeah. So so that was I mentioned earlier we had two events this summer. So that was the first of the events. We called it Maple Trees and Lab Coats.
Yes.
And we've been partnering with Camp Big Canoe on the outskirts of Bracebridge. They've got a fantastic section of hardwood forest that's part of their camp, and they allowed us to set up test plots throughout the forest. So we went in and applied different levels of wood ash. 1 ton per hectare, is that the right amount? 2 tons per hectare?
Yeah.
6 tons per hectare?
Yeah.
So we applied this in different areas, and then came back. We had graduate students who have done their entire master's thesis, and
Great.
some working
Yeah.
on PhDs on this, and measured sap flow and used a device called dendrometers, which can actually measure like a cell level of growth of trees, and very, very accurate. And recorded how does this affect sugar maples? How does this affect
Yeah.
hemlock? How does this affect the seedlings that are growing in the undergrowth, and all that. And so the Maple Trees and Lab Coats event that we had in August was a chance for people to come and walk the trails and see the test plots
Yeah.
and meet some of the scientists, and get them to just kind of say, and here's where I did this, and this is what we found,
Yeah.
and it was a beautiful day for a walk in the woods too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. And I remember because, you and I both worked together on that Ash Muskoka project,
Mhm.
a few years ago, and we both got knee deep in ash at one point,
Yes.
filtering ash and spreading ash. I remember walking through that beautiful plot and
Hmm.
helping spread the ash one time, which was amazing.
Yep.
And I remember also when we were at some of the results that came out a couple years ago, they said um, that it wasn't just the calcium that got increased; it was the other nutrients that got increased in the trees as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's some of the graduate students who worked on the initial project are now saying, okay, so for the next phase, I want to really understand, is it the calcium that is causing this great growth, or is it the magnesium that's
Yeah,
or is it the combination,
yeah,
and
everything.
different species are need different nutrients.
Yeah,
So if you've got a forest that is, like, we know that maple trees, sugar maples in particular, are very, very calcium dependent.
yeah,
So if you've got a forest that has lots of sugar maples, well, then adding calcium to it is gonna help.
yes,
If it's all black spruce, well, is that going to have as big an impact? We don't know, or at least
yeah.
I don't know. uh,
We're learning.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So we're trying to find. I mean, as an organization, our whole premise is, when we look at what kinds of questions we're going to ask and what projects we're going to tackle, we sort of say, is it something that is a local problem, because we are the Friends of the Muskoka watershed?
Yes,
Is it something that is not being addressed by somebody else? Because there's no sense duplicating effort. Is it something where there seems to be a lack of scientific understanding, and that's why it's not being addressed? Is it something where there's likely to be able to find a solution?
Yeah.
that can be locally implemented. And is it something that that people who live here can get involved in,
Yeah.
can be part of the solution? And so that's the goal, is to kind of identify the problem, identify the generate the knowledge, and build the will to act on that knowledge. It's not just oh, this is interesting science. It's this is interesting science that can be acted upon to
Yes.
improve or enhance the health of the local environment. And yeah, so that's where the Ash Muskoka project really it ticked all those boxes,
Yes.
because in order to have the ash to spread for us, for you and I to get all covered in what we're
Yes.
spreading it in the forest, and many other people too.
Many other people.
Um, um, it's involved people collecting the ash from their wood stoves,
Yeah.
and they bring it to the Rosewarne landfill. We have once a month, we have an ash drive
Yes.
through the wood burning season, and people save their wood ash
Yeah.
in cans and buckets, which they can get from us. And they one Saturday a month they can bring it cold in in
Cold.
easy,
Yeah. Not hot.
not hot.
Cold.
Don't bring the hot ash. And bring it, and then we store it, we sift it, and store it,
Yeah.
and once we've got sufficient quantity, then
Spread it.
we can spread it, exactly.
Yeah.
And many other people I mean, I actually have a couple of acres of woodland myself, so I don't take my ash to the ash drive. I spread it in my own
Spread it. Yeah.
forest. But I registered with on our website, fotmw.org. Sorry, I said that quickly. fotmw.org,
Yeah.
Friends of the Muskoka Watershed, as someone who is spreading ash on my own property.
Yeah. And that's great that you did that,
Yeah, yeah.
because yeah, it lets them know who's helping and who's doing stuff on their own. And anecdotally, so one thing I've noticed is, I dug my own fire pit into the ground, right?
Yep.
I didn't buy a fire pit, dug my own, put some rocks around it, whatever. And I just let the ash and the stuff keep sinking into the soil year after year.
Okay. Yep.
About a meter around that fire pit is the most luscious, greenest grass you'll ever see.
Really?
And I'm like, if anyone ever wants to see what wood ash does, and although I don't buy wood, I like take it from what falls in the ravine beside my house and
Mhm.
what falls from the trees around my house. That's the wood we use.
Yep.
So we just take and we collect it and all the branches, and sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller, and we burn that wood from around our property and around the ravine that's near our property. Now, and we still have a ton from one tree that had to be felled because it was done. It got hit by lightning and we needed to take it down.
Yep.
So we burn all that natural wood that's not been processed, that's just from around, and it just, all the nutrients, all the everything just makes it beautiful around that like fire pit. It just, I don't take it out, I just let it sift into the thing, and it expands. Like you can see around it a little bit how it gets bigger and bigger, the circle of healthy grass year after year. Now I do
Interesting.
trim around it because we have to sit around it, but every time I let it grow for a while, you can see it gets greener and nicer, and it's the nicest looking grass, and you can tell compared to the rest of the property.
Interesting. So the nutrient is kind of percolating outward through the
Yep.
soil. That's very, very cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I've certainly seen that with septic tanks.
Yeah. Yeah, the other way.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no,
Oh, but yeah.
it's phenomenal. And when we first started doing this, the Ash Project, we had a citizen science component where people could identify two trees on their property and do a little test,
Yes.
and spread just a little, like it's a yogurt-sized container, in a meter. That's all you need. Spread that around one tree and
Yeah.
then not around the other, and then just watch. And you can, I mean, we're not doing the formal study anymore. But you can certainly do this at home. If
Yeah.
you've got two trees that are similar, growing in a similar space, if you've got a wood stove, or if you've got a campfire pit,
Yeah.
try this. Just take let's say like a yogurt tub size container of ash
Yeah.
and spread that over the area, and just watch and see. Does the one tree produce more leaves? Are the
Yeah.
leaves lusher?
Yeah.
Certainly, we partnered with some sugar bushes
Yeah. That's right.
on this, and they've been delighted with the results. They're because the trees are not just um, uh, producing more leaves; they're healthier trees. They're less prone to breakage. In the first year that we did this, we actually had a massive increase in the flow of sap and in the trees that have the ash. Now that didn't happen the next year. So we're not quite sure why, but
Yeah.
certainly one year there was a measurable increase in the amount of sap, and it wasn't just more water; it was also more sugar in there. So there was more syrup that would have been produced from those trees. So sugar maple producers are very interested in that.
Sure
So
they are. The more,
yeah.
yeah, and I remember we were just we had that question: is it sweeter? Is it not sweeter? But that hasn't. I can't remember. Has that been answered?
Yeah, so the sugar content of the sap in the ash trees
Yeah.
was just as high as in the non-ash trees. It was just that there was more of it. There
Okay.
was more sap with the same amount of sugar per gallon
Okay.
as the untreated trees.
Yeah, but that's huge. Producing more sap,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Like, yeah, like you said, they're happy about that. But I remember we asked, is it sweeter or not? And I couldn't remember, but no,
Yeah,
it's the same sweetness.
yeah.
So it's the same wonderful flavor. There's just more of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's just a single addition. You just need to to give the treatment once, and that replenishes all that calcium that was washed out through decades and decades of acid rain.
Yeah.
And that one treatment, you're doing what would normally take centuries for the forest to do itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, so we had a chance to tour the those test plots
nice.
and encourage people to donate because all of this takes money.
Yeah.
We have to hire people to do things. We need we need buckets for the ash drives, and we need and the scientists that do this work. We partner with them. They're able to raise some funds
Yeah.
through their universities and through grants, and but we need to bring some money to the table too, and that comes through our donors and our members. We are a registered nonprofit, so we can give tax donations or tax receipts rather for donations. So that's all that information is at fotmw.org.
Yeah.
And it helps us to work on other projects that we're moving into more and more studies on road salt now,
We'll
which
have
all,
to save we'll have to save that for the next one.
okay,
We're
absolutely.
down to under a minute.
Oh my goodness.
It
Have
went
we
so
just been
fast.
talking for two?
But yeah, no, it's been great. So I'm gonna sign us off now, everyone. I know I cut Andrew short on the road salt. That we're gonna actually have that discussion later. But I did have a brief discussion, or not brief, but a good discussion with Dr. Neil Hutchison about that. So you can search that up on the blog. So there's a podcast on that out there. But we're gonna do an update once some more information comes out in the next couple months about the road salt. So I'll make sure that either Andrew comes back or Neil or somebody comes back from Friends of Muskoka Watershed to discuss that. And the link will be on my blog. So fotmw.org. It'll be on there. All the links, all the stuff will be on there. You just have to go and click on it and you'll go right to the website. So all that's there. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today and all this wonderful information to share. Thank you, Your TV Muskoka, for airing this, and thank you to everybody who's been watching this or who's listening on the blog or on Spotify or all the stuff that I have it on any of our channels. We thank you. We appreciate you. And hit up Friends of Muskoka Watershed, whether you want to volunteer, whether you want to donate, whatever way you can help. It's important because it's our future. So again, thank you, Andrew, for coming.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. A real pleasure as always. And we will speak again soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will. All
Yeah.
right. Bye, everyone.
All right. Take care. Bye.